Well, welcome back to the Noble Shire for progressive discussion here at Progressive Rock Central. Nick he's been here many times and knows the way and knows how to get around. He is back, and he is back within a year, almost to the day, which is really amazing. This guy is very prolific, and we're going to talk with him later about what he already is probably working on, and maybe by next year we'll be back here again. He's just that fast, and he's got a fantastic band that has sort of reorganized for his new album called The Mask of Sanity. And we're going to be talking with that. Um, but he released the Mask of Sanity on October 6th and with some real good help from Bad Dog Promotions. And if you guys don't know who these people are, you really should. For those of you that are independent artists, they are just fantastic as far as getting the word out. All right, I'm going to let Nick say hi, and if you want to talk about any of that or anything in general, go ahead. Sorry.
That's all right. Nice to see you again, Mark. But I
Thank you.
was going to say it's not really exactly been a while, has it? Because not only did we talked around this time last year, but also, of course, I was part of the John Hackett band interview as
That's right.
well this year. So you, I seem to be keep coming back and probably getting sick of me by now.
No, 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 he likes it here in the Shire, I hope.
I do like it here in the Shire. Absolutely, yeah, it's great.
All right. So tell us a little bit about the band first. What are some of those changes that you put in place, which are just every time you bring in a band, I'm like, oh, he's finally got it. He's got a fantastic group of people here. And then, boom, you got a new group of people in there in ways better. I mean, it just keeps getting better. So go ahead and talk about that, how you
Well,
continue.
it's nice to know that you think it's getting better. I do try really quite hard and put a lot of thought into the idea of developing every recording that I make and making it different a little bit and moving things on and mixing things up. I'm not really somebody who likes to sort of stand still. I do like to, you know, change the music a little bit and the direction of things. Um, So each album, although obviously they probably have trademark and stylistic qualities, hopefully the narrative of each album as it unfolds is different, and that is partly due down to the personnel who is actually working on the music with me. Because obviously I write all the music for my own albums, but whichever personnel that you draft in to work on and collaborate with can often change the direction of where you originally probably perceived the album to go. Um, and that certainly was the case with this album, probably more so than any album. I've done five solo albums now in the last 5 years, and the third one um, was Quadrivium, which I think was a quite a big step forward. In direction because that was because that was my first album with Annika Niles, and of course Annika is now sort of was fairly probably unknown in the world of progressive music until last week, when of course there was this mega prog rock announcement that she had now become the drummer with Rush. So we
I
can
was
talk
going to
about
wait till later.
that.
I was going to
Yeah,
wait till later, but do you want to go
yeah,
ahead
it's
and
fine. We can.
talk about?
No, it's all right. We can talk about it later, Mark. It's
No,
fine. I
no,
just
that's
wanted
all
to
right. Um,
Yeah, I just wanted to say that she came on board with recording with me in 2023, and that really sort of changed things and shook things up quite considerably because obviously she is a phenomenal talent, And a drummer literally is the driving force of any band. So whatever drummer you have will always give you a rhythmical direction that is different depending on their personal approach to playing the kit. So that was a one big thing, and of course, and on this new album, Annika was supposed to be doing the recording with me, but due to circumstances you just mentioned, that was not possible. So I got Roberto Porter, who is an Italian drummer, to come and record with me. Now, it wasn't something that um, out of the blue, because I'd known Roberto's work and I'd sort of met him, and we'd spoken quite a lot for maybe 18 months. And he was always somebody I was going to work with. I mean, there was just no doubt in my mind that at some point I would work with Roberto, because I'm so taken with his playing, so impressed with what he does, and how he knows, understands my music and how I write really, really well. So he came on into the band in this album, and obviously then rhythmically mix things up and change things a bit, well, quite a bit actually, from where they may have been had I not had Roberto. I had same bass player, Jonathan Cunhado. I think you may have met. We have met, I'm sure. We had a little discussion, didn't we, at
Yes.
one point last year? Yeah. So Jonathan came back on bass,
He
and
was
Jonathan
from
is
he was from Annika Niles' band as well. So
that's correct.
yeah,
Yes, he's the
there's a
bass player in
connection.
Annika's own band. That's correct. And now he's basically become a bit of a mainstay for me as well in my recorded output. Um, Again, because he's so in tune with everything that I write. So that's great to have Jonathan contributing. So Jonathan played on the previous album, A Longing for Home, and he came back on this one. Caroline, who also you've met, my
Yes.
long-time friend and collaborator, producer, and right-hand person. She carried on recording for me, and she played all the keyboards on this album, which was the first, because on all of my previous albums, I've had other keyboard players as well to come in. So there's always been two keyboard players on my previous recordings, but on this one, it was the first time where Caroline did all the keyboard work, so which was great. She did a great job.
Yes.
Um, and also, of course, Olga came back as well, because now
Yeah.
you know Olga,
Oh
because if it
yeah.
wasn't for
No,
you, I
I'm
wouldn't know Olga. So
she's
Dickie
gonna
G, as she is
she's gonna
known
send
as.
me her new album, and we're still trying to get together a an interview time, but definitely
Yeah,
Olga is incredible.
well, she is amazing,
Yeah.
and the new album is amazing. So I've heard it, Mark, and it is absolutely stunning.
Looking
So
forward to it.
you'll enjoy that when it comes. Um, so she came back to, and she recorded she contributed to 3 tracks on this album. On the previous album was just the one, and on this one she's done 3 with different stylistic traits on each 3, because she's got such a diverse singing ability and
Range.
quality to her
Yeah.
voice, that and range, that she you can ask her to do anything, and she can do it. I've never actually worked with a singer quite like her, to be honest. The
She's
depth of her ability and her musical understanding, I can never really sort of underplay. She is a major talented artist, a great singer.
it's so
So that
good
was great.
it's so good she took that risk of coming over from Russia to I remember when
Yeah.
she first came over, I mean, she was barely had a place to live and everything. And
Mm.
she's touring with you. She's making music with you, with the Black Heart Orchestra, with um, John's band, the John
Mm.
Hackett's band. I mean, she's just so involved, and it's yeah, it is wonderful. It was great for her to
Yeah,
come.
it was a good move for her, I think.
Yeah.
And also now she's been going out a lot as a solo artist, and she's been supporting the John Hackett band in that way too.
Yeah.
And she sings with the John Hackett band as well whenever she's with us, which is amazing. Um, but she's got her own band together now, which is a fabulous band. I saw her band at the Woking Festival a couple of months ago because we were both playing on the same day at this festival, and her band is superb, really superb. So yeah, I'm sure she'll be doing a lot more. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting off the subject now. Where was I?
Okay.
Yes, so she contributed to the album on 3 tracks, and then on another 3 tracks, I got Claire Lindley, who is the
That was a that
violinist
was a big
Big
coup. That
Train.
was good.
Yes, it was
That's
great. I mean, I've always liked Claire's playing, within the Big Train, and also from Stackridge as well. And I thought I wanted to have a slight change of direction on this album with different sounds and so forth. And I always wanted to incorporate a bit of violin in what I do. So for me, she was the perfect choice, really. And she was very up for doing it. And she contributed some great stuff because
Oh,
again, she's somebody, a player that can move into all sorts of areas musically quite easily because obviously because she's somebody who works in the realm of progressive music. And you can't play in the realm of progressive music if you don't understand all the different genres that can incorporate.
and the time signature.
It's really great. Pardon?
And the time signatures.
Yeah, yeah, all that stuff as well. Exactly. You've got to be able to navigate your way through all that. Yeah, and Claire's great. She's this really really lovely person to work with, and I'm really thrilled to have worked with her. I'm thrilled that she came onto the album because what she delivered just sounds, for me, was just perfect. It was exactly what was required for all the tracks that I asked her to do.
And tell us what your secret is. How do you balance all this? Like I say, he came out with this a year from when he released the last one, and he's touring with the John Hackett band, and he's whatever he's doing some solo church shows and things like that. I don't know how you balance all that, but you're doing a hell of a job at your age, which is probably close to mine. So, um, congratulations, and
Oh,
tell us how
thanks,
you
Mark.
do
But to me, it doesn't, it doesn't feel like that to me because it's. I think all musicians and all artists and creative people go through fertile periods of creativity and less fertile periods of creativity. Um, and at the moment, I feel like I'm going through a fairly fertile creative period. I mean, if I'm absolutely honest, I think that you know, I've been going through a lot of turmoil in my own private life, and I think that often that can actually feed into the creativity for me, because it's a way of dealing with life and processing life in a positive, creative way. Um, and so I tend to think that we all need a bit of a muse to be able to do the creative work. Without that, I think sometimes you know what does get created can be maybe a little passe and a little stale, you know,
it.
and maybe not have the same impact or effect upon a listener that you might like. Um, so yeah, I do tend to write all the time. I pretty much write something pretty much every day. Um, Sometimes that develops into something, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it gets put in a folder somewhere. And if I get stuck with another piece of music I'm writing, sometimes I will think, what about? I remember that thing I was working on the other week. I wonder if that'll work. I wonder if that would go with this piece. Maybe that will be part of this composition. And try it out and see if it does. And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. And also, when you're writing, sometimes it develops in different ways. Like I was saying then, sometimes you can get an idea and it goes nowhere, so you put it on the side and maybe come back to it. And then there are other times when you start writing something and it becomes almost like automatic writing. Like it just kind of happens. You get in the zone, you get in the flow, and within a couple of hours, it's like, oh, well, where did that come from? I think that's
Yeah.
going to work. You know, it's strange how that kind of works.
but he's not only writing, he's reading a lot. And I think that's where you came up with the Mask of Sanity from reading some Carl
Mhm.
Jung. And I mean, every one of his albums has some new stuff that I haven't heard of, but probably many people haven't heard of. I've heard of Carl Jung, but but he always brings that I call it learning. He gives somebody more than it gives everyone that buys his albums more than what they paid for. There's beautiful music, which we already know about that, but then he adds these concepts and things to it. Tell us how Carl Jung and inspired you, and what was it about his writings that said that's going to be the title of this album?
Well, out of all, I mean, like you know, Mark, I like to have concepts to work with pretty much everything that I've done really, and the titles often reflect that as well. And of course, this is no different to that. It's just another um, concept that kind of sparked my imagination. But the thing with this one, this is a more personal uh, concept than many others because of difficulties I've had over the years, and having undergone psychotherapy and many times, it's kind of brought me to a place where I really wanted to research more about the people who instigated and came up with the whole idea of what goes off in the human mind. So the writings of Carl Jung was a good place to start because I've got friends who've inspired me to and sort of pushed me down the path to read this stuff, um, which has been really really helpful. And so reading a lot of his books and so forth, I kind of came to the conclusion that I wanted to maybe immerse myself musically in this whole sort of world as well. And so it was really quite interesting to work with the concept and how the music came out and developed as a consequence of that. It was quite an interesting experience, really. Um, and the whole thing about the Mask of Sanity, the concept behind it is, so much of who we portray, who we appear to be, can be either informed by what's Jung describes as the shadow self, or another part of the consciousness that is actually, causing us to behave and react in certain ways that we don't even realize. And it's only when that you come to a place in your life where life starts to unravel that you have to face these issues and start to realize that actually the shadow of who you are has been informing your personality in such a degree that you, who you portray to the world is not actually who you really are. And then it's a journey of self-discovery to find out, well, who is the real me. So there's that aspect of it, but there's also the other aspect of, which I think is something I explored in the idea of the track called Shadow Magician, which is the longest track on the album. Now that track, it kind of moves from different moods and different atmospheres within the context of one long track. Um, and the idea behind that was to portray that the shadow magician is the darkest part of the human mind
Yeah.
that can very easily manipulate and deceive everybody as to who the real person is. And they can morph into being whatever they feel they want to be in order to control and manipulate. Now, I'm not naming names, but I think there are certain people in this world who that characteristic, rings quite true.
Yeah. No, no, I know who you're talking about.
I don't think we need to say anymore.
He's driving all of us nuts, and not just here, but throughout the world.
Yeah, yeah. But so this whole idea of the shadow magician is a Jungian archetype that he refers to as that can easily mutate and transform into being whatever in order to deceive deliberately. So there's all that sort of psychology going off within my sort of ideas behind the music, and then there's another track called "A Curious Case of Synchronicity." And synchronicity is a big part of Jung's ideas of the universe is connected
Yeah.
at a very deep level, and that there aren't that sometimes what we consider to be coincidences are more than coincidences. They're actually things that are come to pass in our lives and meetings and that we have with people that can change us and transform us and move life in a different direction in ways that if we'd have thought it through and tried to put together, it would never have happened. So happenings that come across your path are more than just coincidence, but are synchronicity, where the universe is conspiring to create something. So there's something bigger going off within ourselves, within the universe. And that's another Jungian sort of conceptual idea, which I'm very fascinated by because of experiences I've had of huge amounts of synchronicities that I've experienced in my life, which have transformed things in ways that, if I'd have tried to do, probably would never have happened.
And
So that's
I was never a psychology major, but obviously I had to take it. And what I remember was the difference between innate learning and then, being taught, experiential or, as I say, being taught. There's another. Uh, and which way did he come down on that? That most behavior is based on learn things that we learn from other people, or is it um, like the person you were talking about, just innate and active and just responding to anything that goes on? Which
well,
which
I mean, that's a deep question. And you probably need to speak to somebody who knows more about it than I do, because
Okay,
I'm interested in these things and I'm
yeah,
intrigued by them, and I read a lot about them, but I'm not an expert. But I would say that much of what happens in life is to us is informed by and shaped by the actions of other people. That kind of we end up being a creation in our psychological makeup that actually was what somebody else created,
yeah.
rather than as being the person that we were meant to be. And
I agree with
it's
that. I
difficult,
mean,
difficult ideas.
there's so much that influences our lives throughout our lives. Parents,
Yeah,
school, TV, music. All the things, culture.
totally. Yeah.
That you can't. I guess you can. If you're living out in the woods or in the forest or away from all that, you can develop. Obviously, you can develop on your own without
Mm.
that learning, but globally, the majority of people, well, maybe not. I shouldn't say that, but a lot of us are learning from past experience and from the help
Mm.
of others.
Sure, sure. And then there's another track on the album, which is actually the title track called "The Mask of Sanity," um, which musically is a kind of representation of losing our mind and losing ourselves, because it starts in a quite cohesive way, although rhythmically it's a bit odd. It seems very straightforward, but actually it's really quite complicated. Um, but then you get to the middle section, which is quite an open sort of sounding section, which actually sounds more reminiscent of the music of Ornette Coleman than anything else. Which I think is interesting to put into progressive music, because again it stretches the listener a little bit into different musical areas. So there's a kind of, but when you listen to it, it almost feels like you know it's becoming very unstable and the mind is kind of unraveling a little bit, and
Yeah,
all this kind of thing. And that represents, I mean, that kind of idea, all these concepts are represented with the artwork within the album as well, because the artwork of the album, is a visual representation. It might be slightly abstract, but all the pictures were chosen to visually, help my idea concept of this as well. So yeah.
All right, before we get into the album, let's go there and let's talk about Annika. And
Mm.
because he's got some incredible news that he wants to, well, I think he still wants to talk about, which is just absolutely exciting. And hopefully you're listening to this and watching this because yeah, what he's about to say is really really cool, and especially all you Rush fans. And one other thing I wanted to say is, please put these Rush fans' worries to bed and let them know that this lady knows what she is doing, and there's nothing to fear here. It's going to sound absolutely fantastic. But go ahead.
Well, yeah. Um, of course, the thing is about Annika Niles is that a few years ago she came to the fore really with her work with Jeff Beck. Now,
Yes.
of course, Jeff Beck probably never known to be, I mean, great guitar player, fabulous music, but never really sort of perceived as being a progressive rock musician, in the same way as someone like Steve Hackett or
Yeah.
David Gilmour or Steve Howe. And so Annika's drumming in that context is probably a little bit more orthodox in some senses. Um, you know, um, she can always move from one kind of musical genre to another very easily and very quickly. She's very adept at doing that. And so, when Jeff would play the blues, and then the next minute he'd be playing some kind of really out there fusion, based on the John McLaughlin theme or something, and then and then take you into some kind of song structure with a piece. Um, and it can do all that without even thinking about it. Very powerful player, huge power, but that's not because she's got massive biceps. It's
No.
because she's got great technique. I
Yeah.
mean, and when we're talking about technique, of course, one of the greatest technicians of the drum kit, that
Yeah.
there's ever been is Neil Peart.
Yeah.
So from that point of view, nobody has anything to worry about because she has all the technique and she has all the power. So that's not an issue. But when I started working with Annika, obviously my music is a bit. I mean, I do have a lot of kind of fusion going off in what I do, but also it's very progressive rock in places as well. So there's lots of strange time signatures and switching from 11/8 to 7/8 to 5/8 back to 4/4 and all that kind of business. And when
Before we
Annika came,
before we go there, just real quick, I know you told me last time,
yeah,
but just tell everyone how you met her, how you brought her on board, and that part.
yeah, okay. Well, just I'll come to that, and I was just going to
Okay.
say that
All right.
with regards to handling all weird time signature changes and all that kind of business,
So
that's
she's
again something that she can do, immaculately.
yeah.
Really, really, really adept at doing. Um, I met her because I saw her with Jeff, and I was very taken with her playing, and I knew instantly, listening to what she did, that she would be great um, with the material that I'd written a few years ago. And so I just approached her and asked if she'd be interested, and then she wrote back to me and said that she was very interested in my music and she'd love to be involved. So that's how we met, and that's how it started, really. And we made the album called Rivium together, and then a year later, I made the album called
Correct.
A
Yeah.
Longing for Home, which was the follow-up album to that. And then with this album, The Mask of Sanity, she was supposed to be doing the album. I'd recorded all the tracks for the album, pretty much all the basic tracks were recorded. Sent them off to Annika. We'd been having some discussions about the recording prior to this, and we had a scheduled Zoom call a few months ago, about a week before she was supposed to be maybe starting to record the first couple of tracks. Because when I wrote with Annika, because of a busy schedule, what we've always done usually is we recorded tracks in batches of stuff. We would maybe do 3 or 2 at a time, and then do another 3 for later time. So already we were set up to record, and then we had a scheduled Zoom meeting, and she called me and she said, "Well, I'm okay for the meeting, but I've got some news, and we need to talk." I thought, "Oh, that sounds a bit. Where's that going?"
Wow.
Anyway, so anyway, we did have a talk. We had a chat about everything, and she said, "Well, the problem she got is that she was starting working with a pretty major band. It was
She
a big
wouldn't tell
deal.
you.
It's a big deal." Oh well, yeah, that came out later. It was the Rush thing, but she was saying that she'd been obviously doing some rehearsals with this band, who we now know as Rush, and said that basically what happened is that the day before our Zoom meeting, she'd had a conversation with somebody called Geddy Lee. So you might know him.
Yeah. Famous bassist.
Yeah, yeah. So who basically said, right, well, it's on. You're in the band.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so, she had to whiz off to Canada for another batch of rehearsals and learning a whole new
Oh, my
load
God.
of Rush material. And of course, it was a situation whereby I can't learn your material for the album that quickly and do all this stuff as well. So something had to give. And of course, should have been Rush, but there you go.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah.
you can't argue with that. Of course, it was just massive, and I couldn't say anything about it for complete stump. Couldn't say a word. So the interesting thing was that she was supposed to be doing it, but Rush got in the way, and so she had to pull out of the recording. I mean, she said I could still do the recording, but it may be later this year. So we wouldn't be having this conversation now because obviously the album still wouldn't have been finished. And I like to work to my time frame in getting things done, partly because there's so much else going on in my life that if I didn't, if it got put back, it would get put back so far that it would probably never happen. So she suggested it may be that I should find another drummer. The question is, when Annika Nile says to you, "Can you find another drummer?" You think, well, how on earth can I find another drummer who can play like Annika?
Not like you see, that's the thing. Not like her. Yeah.
This is the
He's
problem,
hard to
isn't it?
replace.
It's like how can Rush find a drummer who can replace Neil Peart?
Yeah. Yeah.
When you've got great musicians who are so fantastic and bring so much to the table of what you do, what you write, how do you replace them?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not in that league at all by any means, but I kind of get it. I get why when John Bonham died that he wasn't replaced
Yeah.
with Led Zeppelin. I can see why.
Yeah.
How do you replace such a unique
Yeah.
sounding person? And of course, the same thing happened to Rush. How could they possibly replace Neil Peart?
Yeah.
Anyway, so they have, but they've replaced it with Annika, which is fantastic news and absolutely wonderful. And I wish her, all the best with it because she'll be amazing. No question.
And this doesn't look like a long-term thing. Now, I don't know. They may get together, they may go on the road, and they may say, "Hey, let's put a new album out." But she could come back, and he may get her off of the Rush trail, and hey, then it's even better. This lady has played with Rush, or she's played.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll see where that goes. I mean,
Yeah,
they've already added quite a number more dates to their tour than what they originally announced, and now they've added some more. So it could well be that if it works out well, they may do a European tour, world tour, may even, they may even record. Who knows? Um, if they're on a roll with it, things could develop. Um,
yeah.
but for myself, life carries on, music
Well, yeah,
carries
and
on,
you
bands
probably
carry
have been.
on. Yeah. So that's when I thought, well, okay, well now is the perfect time to work with Roberto. Um, if he's up for it and if he's willing to do it, he is the guy to do it. Which goes back to the title of the track that I was talking about, The Curious Case of Synchronicity, because that was a synchronicity for me
There you go.
because the fact that one door shut and then another opened immediately and was just terrific. And it was just so wonderful that happened. Because Roberto is, I mean, I cannot tell you how amazing he is to work with and what a phenomenally gifted drummer he is, you know. And if Annika wasn't doing the drum chair for Rush, then he'd be another guy who could do it. He's an
Oh, yeah.
astounding. He really is.
Well, and I just gotta jump in here because I don't know if you have ever listened to it or it. The more you keep talking, the more it reminds me of that whole era of synchronicity for the Police. And as you may or may not know,
Mm,
Sting was a history teacher
mm,
and a high school history teacher before he quit and then went
yeah,
on to much bigger things.
yeah.
Or he went on to Italy, Anyway, no, we won't go all
Mm,
that way. But anyway,
mm.
synchronicity has a lot of young in it and ideas, concepts in the lyrics and things like that. So I
Yeah.
don't know if you ever listened to that album or
Oh, yeah, I have. Yeah. I mean, many years ago. I haven't listened to it for a while, but yeah, I know of
yeah.
it and I've heard it. Yeah, yeah.
And when I first saw you were going to do Young, I didn't see the title of the song Synchron or the title with synchronicity in it. It just, God, I wonder if it's going to be anything like that.
Mm.
No, you're not into reggae and ska and things like that, or maybe you are, but you don't like playing it. Maybe I don't know, but definitely that it just brought all those ideas and things back to me.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, synchronicity is so important to all of us working
Mm.
together, getting things right, getting that coordination. How can you live life without it?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna
So that was
no, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
no. So I was saying that so basically that's the band and that's how it came together and despite the fact that I wasn't able to work again once more with Annika, I was able to work with an equally gifted drummer um, who brought a different sound, a different flavor, and a different direction to the music, which was again fantastic because it means that instead of going down the same old formula, which most musicians can easily fall into, you may one album and people say, "Oh, I really like that album, I really like that track," and but then you make another one, "I really like that," and so you can so easily fall into the trap of thinking, "Oh, well, people like that, they like this, maybe I should do more of that," you know. But when you get different musicians bringing different flavors, different directions, different thought patterns into the whole flow of the music, things start to change and the music starts to change. It takes on a different direction, different color, different path. And and for me, that's great because it means I'm not standing still.
Yeah.
I'm moving, and all music should and art should be motion. Otherwise, it's stagnates.
All right. We're gonna just a couple quick questions, just like more about your what you do when you're not playing music. What are some of your favorite hobbies? What do you like to do if you have, it doesn't sound like you have much free time, but if you do have free time,
I
what do you like to do?
haven't got any other hobbies. I'm a complete musical nerd. I'm completely immersed in the world of music, writing, playing, 24/7, and teaching it as well. So I'm very much immersed in all of that. One of my things I do love is reading. I do
Yeah.
love. I'm passionate about my reading and researching into philosophy and spirituality, things like that. I'm very very passionate about, and poetry. I really love poetry. In fact, my last three albums have always had a poem,
Yeah.
and always a poem by a friend called Samantha Turner, who is a a beautiful poet and writer who lives in Wigan, which is not far from here, and in the north of England. And she's a fabulous writer. And you know, and I asked her when I say to her, "This is the concept of the album. This is what I'd. Do you think you could do something that could express this in words? Because I'm not very good with words. You know, I'm okay with music, but not with words. And I think it's great if you've got a concept that it helps the listener if there's some form of poetic expression to
Yeah.
read. You know,
Yeah.
that helps the listener get into the idea and the concept of what the music is behind, what's behind it, what's driving it, what's helped create it. And so she's fantastic, and I love working with Sam. And so she brings in the poetry, which is what I love. And then of course the artwork. I really spend a lot of time thinking about the artwork. So you know, the artwork for me is the envelope of the given. The
Yeah.
music is the given, but there's got to be an envelope in which to present that music, which for me needs to spark the imagination in the listener's mind as to, well, what am I looking at? What am I hearing? What am I reading about? How does all this sort of like artistic expression coalesce to express the concept of what this geezer's on about?
Well, definitely no. In the last one, or no, the quad album,
Yeah,
you had a lady sort of floating.
yeah, yeah,
This time, a lady coming up from the deep. It looks like.
yeah.
What's what's the symbolism there? Or the meaning? I mean, yeah,
Well, the
discovery
symbolism,
here.
yeah, the symbolism of the artwork for this album. I mean, actually I've got a box here. So that's the
I
cover. That's what
don't have
you're
one yet.
referring
Yeah.
to. Yeah, yeah. So that's the cover. So the idea of that is basically um, it's twofold really. First of all, it's a kind of metaphor that basically says that who we really are is hidden within the depths and is not
You
really
got to
on
go
the
down there to
surface.
find it.
Yeah. And then you know the sort of all the bubbles that are coming out of her mouth there as she's trying to get the air is about coming to the surface
Yeah.
and finding who we really are. So there's that aspect. And also so there's some more in the middle. You can see
Can
those.
you can you show the poem? Because yeah, he just mentioned the poems, and
Yeah, sure.
I
Will.
don't have that copy yet. Um,
Sure. So anyway, that's basically what the cover is about, and also the fact that you know often we feel like we're drowning,
yeah.
you know, in how we feel about life. So there's a kind of visual metaphor to that. There in the center is the poem. That is the center spread, and here is the sort of the gatekeeper to our minds,
Okay.
as it were. You know, and that's the poem, "The Mask of Sanity," that Samantha wrote, which is goes across 2 pages, which is a fabulous poem. And then the back of the cover, the
Would
back of
you
the
want
album,
to
is this
go
one.
ahead?
This is the back of the album cover, and the idea behind this was that the lady on the picture looks quite serene and in control, but her hair is all over the place.
Yeah.
So that kind of represents the unraveling of the human mind behind what we present, which is the mask of sanity. The unraveling of the mind is represented in the hair. So there's kind of all these kind of cryptic ideas that I like to put into these things because I think it kind of gives a visual metaphor to the thing. And
Absolutely.
also, so I mean, you probably can't see here. If I'm getting any closer, but somebody said, "Oh, is that Olga?"
It
Because
kind of looks like her. Yeah.
yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
But that was another reason for using it too.
Okay.
Yeah,
Let me ask you I'm just going to ask you, and then it's up to you. Would you
yeah.
read the poem, or how do you feel about that?
Would you like me to read it?
If you don't mind.
Yeah, no, not at all. I haven't got an actor's voice to deliver it, Mark,
Oh,
but
yes,
I'll
you
give it my
do.
best shot.
Yes, you do. Well, in the
I might need
preview,
a bit
it's
of
obviously
marketing.
too small for me to see, and probably anyone else. But it'd be interesting
Yeah,
to hear you do the poem. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I'll read it. Yeah. Okay, so this is the poem. This is The Mask of Sanity by Samantha Turner. Inside us all, where secrets sleep, there's another part which is hiding deep. Are we aware or do we deny? Afraid to face it, eye to eye. The trauma, pain, the memory of past events shaped it into being. A shadow made of stress and shame, which dwells inside, runs through our veins. We refuse to see it, this other self. Leave it alone, just let it rest. But with neglect, the shadow grows. The thing now seeps into our wounds. To deny it makes us weaker. We should learn to coexist. There is no need to kill and conquer, just accept it and forgive. We must be strong. We must embrace the part of us we cannot erase. By only making peace with pain can we truly begin to live again. The only escape is to face our truth, to open the forbidden door, confront the one that lies beneath, and be a prisoner no more. Yeah, which I think is a really, and that kind of for me sums up the kind of whole concept of the album. Yeah, it's good stuff.
You got a good poet there. Yeah, no, that was excellent. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
she's
you.
great. And the thing is
Thank you
that,
for
when I
sharing.
come up with an idea, she gets it, Yeah.
Oh yeah, she nailed it. Okay, one
Hmm.
last sort of personal question, but I think
Sure.
you're from Sheffield. Am I right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
What are
Correct.
some of if somebody was to go there, which I would like to someday, but maybe other people as well, what's the best place to visit, best thing to do in Sheffield? Other than go and see a Nick Fletcher or
Well,
John
well,
Hocking
the great,
concert.
yeah. Yeah, well, that'd be good. Yeah, the great thing about Sheffield is that it's a city that's built on 7 hills, and so
Like
it's a bit
Rome,
like Rome, but not quite as exotic.
like Rome and Seattle, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, but the great thing about it is that it's situated right on the border of what's called the Peak District National Park, in the UK, which is a fantastic place of outstanding beauty, wild open spaces, hills, moors, rivers, beautiful. Everything about it is just utterly beautiful. And nestled right next to that national park is the city of Sheffield. So it's
Oh,
it's it's a fantastic place to come and visit, to see some beautiful natural things. It's really very close to nature. Um, and of course, but it is in the county of Yorkshire, and the county of Yorkshire is English people call it, God's own county. It's very proud people to be living in Yorkshire, and some great musicians and artists have come out of Yorkshire. Um, most of which emigrated to America, shall I say, but they did come from Yorkshire. Um, Alan Holdsworth came from Bradford, which is just up the road from me. John McLaughlin came from a place called Doncaster, which is even closer to me, and uh, and of course David Hockney, the great artist, came from Bradford too, which is just
yeah.
a few miles from me. So there's been some great musicians and artists
Yeah.
who've come from this area of the world. Yeah, but it's a great place to visit. Of course, it's Old York instead of New York,
Right, right, right.
which is a
Original
fabulous
York.
ancient, fabulous place with history that goes back beyond Roman
Oh my
times. Yeah,
goodness. Yeah, um,
yeah.
um, what was his name? Braveheart. Um, I think they assaulted the castle at York in that movie. I
Oh,
mean,
quite possibly. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I mean,
that,
it's a hugely
that's a
historic
movie,
city. I mean,
but
it's
there's
ancient.
history. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, and of course, at the moment, that's Heather Finley lives in York, so it's a great place.
All right, there you go. Okay, so let's talk about your album, which again is fantastic. He keeps upping this. Every single one of them keeps getting better. And you open with Claire Lindley, and I'm telling you, it it stunned me, and probably does everyone else. Your albums are usually always up and upbeat and jazzy, and it starts out with this real slow, sad violin. It doesn't stay that way, but it was cool in that it was different. Absolutely
Mhm.
surprised
Good.
the H out
Yeah.
of me and probably other people. Was that purposeful or go ahead?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
It was. Yeah, it was always going to be the opening of the album. The track is called "As Above, So Below,"
As above, yeah.
and the idea is to do with basically the relationship between the heavenly and the spiritual and the earthly. So the violin is representing the descent from the heavens into the earth, and then once we get into the earth, we get some pretty heavy rock happening.
Yeah. Then it changes. Yeah, definitely. No, no, but it's yeah,
But
it
that's the idea behind the track and why it happened like that. Yeah.
and I actually once the drum starts kicking in there, it's funny that I mentioned that now that I talked about the police, but it has sort of that Stuart Copeland kind of drum salute and
Mm.
reminded me of all this time from the Soul Cages, which was Sting solo album. But anyway, do you know it? Have you heard that? What I'm?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah,
Sure, familiar with that. Yeah, yeah.
and I know you weren't trying to go for that, but I'm just saying I noticed that, and it was then it was more familiar, and I was like, he's not going to stay in this sad state. I just know.
Yeah,
It's
it's quite deceptive, but it's supposed to be,
yeah.
a kind of a depiction of the title of the track, really. Yeah. So that's what happens, and so the track unfolds from that point on into something much heavier, much earthier sounding, basically. Yeah.
All right, and then Simulacrum, wonderful. This was another. I'm telling you, he really surprised the hell out of me on this album, and probably everyone else out there. This one, Simulacrum, is an image or representation of something or
Mhm,
someone,
mhm,
and this sounds like no. I'm not saying he copied these guys in any way, but he adds Olga, and she takes you back, I think, to the girl from Ipanema and a famous Brazilian sort of folk
mm.
song. Uh, what do you think about that? And I know, like you say, you don't copy people or anything like that, but did that have any kind of inspiration at all, or?
Well, uh, no, it doesn't have any inspiration to me. But it's interesting that you say that it that when you hear it, it kind of resonates with you into that kind of sound. And once you said that, you know, I hadn't thought of it before, and I think, well, actually, I can see where you're coming from with that because because it has a kind of lightness and a kind of joyous and freedom to it, which once you it makes you want to feel like you want to just run on the beach, and
Yeah.
with with a beautiful woman or whatever. It has that kind of feel about it. So I kind of get what you're saying with that. It was never intended, but yeah, it was a really difficult track for Olga to sing. Um, she did it great. I mean, I was really pleased with what she did. But I didn't realize how difficult for a singer this particular melodic idea would be until she wrote back to me once and said, "Do you really want me? Do you seriously want me to sing that tune?" Yeah. So from a singer's perspective, it was a bit odd, but she nailed it and she did it brilliantly. And she sings it with such freedom and such joy, which really encapsulates Olga. I mean, she's such a beautiful, vivacious, free spirit, And I think that that particular vocal on that track, the way she sings it, really expresses the essence of who she is.
Yeah.
Great.
All right. You talked about Shadow Walker, but if you want to talk a little bit more about that, I actually heard a little bit of, no, not again, not copies, but it sounded a little bit like some of the guitar that Mark Knopfler plays. And I was like, this
Mhm.
is wonderful. Again, I know you're not, using or copying or anything, and your music does not sound like his at all, really. But has he ever been an influence for you? Let's put it that way.
Not really, no. I mean, somebody that I always admired, and I think he's a fabulously interesting, unique player. Has his, very distinctive way of playing. Um, he's never been somebody who's playing I've ever sort of emulated at all. But I do. But again, I totally get where you're coming from, right? Because I don't usually play too much of my stuff with a kind of cleaner sound.
Okay.
If I'm soloing, I tend to use a lot more overdrive. Um, so it's one of the few sort of upbeat solos that I think I've done whereby I'm using a fairly clean sound on the guitar. Um, and I mean the actual uh, the way in which it unfolds to me in some. I mean, I hear what you're saying with the guitar playing, but as a track itself and the energy of the track reminds me of sort of early Mahavishnu Orchestra and
Oh,
probably
okay.
Brand X.
Yeah.
You know, and again, that's really down to Roberto and Jonathan's driving, force rhythmically in the track. Um, and but I wanted to take the guitar, the lead guitar parts, in a slightly different direction. Again, because I don't like to just do the same thing all the time. Um, and I think I did try recording some soloing on that with a more overdriven sound because I got that look from Caroline, which like, no, you're not going to do that. That's not going to work. So we went down this other route, which, like you say, could be a little bit more Knopfler-esque, and but it works.
Yeah,
It's
it
what the
did.
track required. It works. It's quite an upbeat, happy sort of track. So when you think of some of the playing of Mark Knopfler, there's a lot of his stuff which was, really quite quite up sounding, and it has that kind of, vibe to it. Yeah.
Then the Shadows of the Magician concept song or epic over 10 minutes. You start out, I don't know if you've ever heard of Jimmy Page's Outrider or any of
Hmm.
that. There's a little Middle Eastern sort of cashmere, again, not a copy, but there's sort of that feeling at the beginning, and then Olga joins in, and it goes over the mountain, and then you end it with I don't know if you remember the song "Hack It to Pieces" or uh, yeah, notes aren't here. Um, but some of Steve Hackett's, oh yeah, Hack It to Bits, Hack It to Pieces or Hack It to Bits,
Okay.
two different albums.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but it just really rocks out towards the end, which is fantastic. So you talked a little bit about the concept, or a lot about the concept, but do you want to talk about this one? It's huge.
Well, this one is the central piece of the album, and I kind of conceived it as such as well. I thought this would be the central focal point of the album, um, and it's a piece of music which really takes the listener through lots of different moods and atmospheres and feels. It goes from, sort of. I mean, there's an element of dream theater in
Yeah,
some of this,
I can
in
see that.
sort of the odd meters and the kind of unusual tritonal use of harmonies and riffs and so forth. So there's a bit of there's a definite Petrucci um, influence. I would definitely agree, about someone on that. Um, but then it morphs into all different sorts of things. Hopefully, it does it in a very convincing and you know unknowing sort of way. It kind of unfolds naturally. It's not forced. I don't like music. There's a bit of this, there's a bit of that, and all let's have a bit of the other. Although this particular track does take you into different sort of areas of music. And after the opening section, part two kind of transports you into a much more spacious landscape where everything kind of opens out. And there's another guitar solo, which is well, the first guitar solo, which is a bit more spacious. It's a bit like it's a bit more like Pink Floyd, I suppose, in that kind of sense.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah,
I hear
and the
some
music kind of
Gilmore.
transforms. Sure, yeah. Well, I mean, these are musicians I've grown up with. I kind of, no man is an island, and there's nothing new under the sun. So I don't purport to be, you know, a great, what's the word? Yeah,
You know
somebody
who?
who's completely come out of nowhere. I mean,
Right.
obviously there's these big influences on what I do.
I
Um,
think you do
but
innovate. I really do.
I mean, that's great to know, and obviously from an objective point of view, from somebody listener, that's nice to know. I mean, I kind of just do what I do, and it comes out as it comes out.
Yeah.
But I do know that there's a huge melting pot of influences and ideas that are sort of seeped into me like osmosis, through listening, through decades of listening.
And as a reviewer, I try to relate the music so that people can, well, what's this song sound like? It
Sure,
sounds a little
sure,
bit like this. It's not a copy. It's
absolutely,
yeah, but
totally. I mean, people need a reference point.
a reference point. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's very important, I think. You know. Oh yes, but back
Sorry.
to where I was saying. It's all right. Back to where I was saying. Um, so then Olga joins in, and then we get this. What I my directive to her on this was to be is it needs to be kind of like an incantation because now the magician is morphing into something else,
Yeah.
and so she kind of comes in with this beautiful, almost operatic voice.
Yeah.
Then it suddenly becomes a Middle Eastern voice, and then it becomes a scream. And she's amazing that she can use her voice in this way because she
Yeah.
morphs from one musical idea to another in one movement.
And
It's amazing how depth her voice is. It's
did you
great.
explain that to her, or did she say,
Yeah. No, that's part of the sort of production directive. This is what I wanted.
"Oh, okay,
Um, yeah. So basically, when I'm working with any musician, is a case of trying to get what's in your head across to the other musicians. Which is why it's so important to work with the right musicians in the first place. Because if you pick the right musicians, then when you talk about this stuff, they get it
they'll pick it up."
immediately. And they'll pick it up exactly and they'll jump on it and they'll go with it and they'll fly with it and they'll give you exactly what you're looking for. And I think out of all the albums I've ever made, this particular album, when I listened back to it and I got the album back the other week and listened to it properly, finished thing, I thought, this sounds exactly like I heard it in my head. This is how
Yeah.
I conceived the whole thing. These musicians that I've collaborated with have been able to embody it and put it out there and make it a reality rather than an intellectual artistic concept,
Yeah.
which is really gratifying. I mean, it's so gratifying. But so she did that, and then that track moves into, like you say, a kind of like almost like a Kashmiri type thing, where everything really starts to get a bit wild and frenzied,
Cool.
you and this is the point where Roberto really kicks in and takes off, and
Yeah.
I mean he's just astounding on this track. I remember when we got the takes and we were listening to them in the studio, and we looked at Caroline, and Caroline looked at me, and we were like,
Yeah.
"How does he even do that? That's just bonkers."
Yeah.
But it's bonkers brilliant. But
Yeah.
how do you play through those weird time signatures and keep changing it? Every bar is different. He doesn't play the same thing. You don't know where you are. He plays cross rhythms, polyrhythms. He's all over the place, but it's phenomenal energy and great technique and musicality. We were just wow.
Blown away.
Now we're cooking. It was superb. And then eventually the piece then fades out in a more gentle, ambient way as well, and kind of helps the listener sort of float off somewhere else. But it's all about that dark side of the human psyche that can morph and change into different personality types,
Yeah.
and express that. But whoever the person they're with doesn't really know who they're dealing with, because they will morph and they will change to suit their mood. And that is the archetype of the shadow magician that Jung talks about.
All right. And then the curious case of synchronicity
Oh, yeah, so
in,
back to that one.
well, just Claire, we got to take our hats off to Claire because, oh my goodness, that the violin, yeah, you've got to have her on the rest of your album. That it just, I mean, I'm not telling you what to do, but oh my God, she is, and you probably already are thinking that. She is just wonderful. She's been a wonderful breath of air, I think.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. The thing is that Claire can, again, she can do so many different styles because she's a progressive musician. 1 minute she
Yeah.
can be like the opening, which is this beautiful sort of classical violin, and then here we've got her playing, and it has an almost folk element, but has a bit of jazz too. And I didn't want a jazz violinist, I didn't want, because a jazz violinist will bring a certain kind of phrasing to the music,
Yeah.
which I didn't want. So although my music is, in times like this particular piece of fusion, I didn't want it to sound like I got a jazz violinist to play. I wanted to do something a bit more earthiness to the way in which they play the melodic structure. And again, I was influenced with this by Jerry Goodman, who was originally the violinist with the Mahavishnu Orchestra and played with the flock. And he was a fabulous folk violinist, as well as doing all this other, jazz and classical stuff. Almost a country player. And so Claire could bring that to the music. So it kind of made me feel, because I loved all that stuff when I was a kid, like Birds of Fire, The Inner Mountain Flame, all that kind of stuff really sparked my imagination as a kid. I just thought this music is just off the chart, amazing, so unusual, but so full of energy and passion. And so that kind of gave me that flavor that I was looking for. And Claire did it, like I say, did a really great job.
All right. Do you have anything to the song The Mask of Sanity?
Well, I think I've already mentioned this one before, haven't I? About how the fact that it represents the unraveling of the human mind.
Right.
So we have this kind of almost free-form section in the middle, which, funnily enough, when you talk to people and you say about freeform music, it's not that free, in the sense that there are sections within that solo that I do, which is coincidentally that's guitar synth, because I do use guitar synth a bit on this album, which is different from my other albums.
Yeah.
First.
And you learned that for this album, right? I think you mentioned you studied it or learned how to do it.
Well, it's certainly a different way of a different way of playing, and it's a sound that I really really like to work with, because as soon as you start playing a solo with the guitar synth sound or a guitar synth sound, you don't feel that you're playing a guitar,
Wow.
because the sound that you're getting back is just not the sound of a guitar, and so that then takes me in a different direction of thought, of phrasing, on the contour of the music and how the improvising develops. It really changes that, and I really love it, because primarily I like to think of myself as somebody who writes music and who loves music and plays music, but I don't really consider myself a guitar player as such. That's the guitar is a tool to do what I do, but I'm not actually fussed about it. But the actual guitar synth is great, because then I can actually go in a direction that takes me away from what I would naturally do as a guitar player. So for me, it's a really interesting and useful sound world and development in the music for me.
All right.
And that track does that, and it kind of gets a bit wild, a bit frenzied, but then it always keeps going back to the structure, and that's quite hard to do, you know, to make sure that because if you don't land on the right notes and get the phrasing right in the
Yeah.
solo, it just goes wrong and it sounds terrible. So it's a bit harder than it first seems to bring that together.
And then there's the last song on the album, which is another great jazzy guitar solo. And you leave us with Birdsong and Sounds of the City in the distance. It's a kind of a stabilizer type song after everything that you've been through throughout the whole album. It's sort of that quiet. Is that is that what you were shooting for? Or
Yeah, that's totally it, Mark, because it's a kind of cathartic end, because you just coined the phrase after all you've been through, and
exactly.
and that is the idea of the journey of the album. You know, it takes us from that sort of descending heavenly thing, and then the rest is a journey through life and all the sort of ups and downs and twists and turns and psychological things that affect us and that we have to deal with. And so at the end, we kind of come full circle where we find ourselves and we kind of reintegrate with ourselves. You know, sometimes we need therapy to help us, but that's what therapists are there for, to help people do that, which is an amazing work that people like that do. Um, and so yes, it brings full circle to that feeling of innocence, really,
Yeah.
of before life happened to us, we actually find the inner child that was meant to be, at the end of it. And so that's why it finishes with the children's voices and so forth. To just bring that sense of, conclusion and that sense of we've arrived back in a kind of mental state
Stability.
of more wholeness and more integrated and, and more innocent rather than, you know, having gone through turmoil and travail for many years. So it kind of has that kind of thing to it. I wasn't going to call it that. I think I called it The Veil of Remembering. I think that was the original title. But I changed it right at the last minute. In fact, it went out on the press release as that it was called The Veil of Remembering because it was about remembering a time of innocence. And
Remembering all you've been
and
through.
again, Caroline said to me in the studio, she said, "Do you mind me saying I don't like that title?" So, oh right, okay. So she explained. She said, "I think you could find a better title to express that music. It has a more innocent feel about it." So I ended up calling it "Song of Innocence" because I think it's a fitting title to the
Definitely.
end of the album. There's also an archetype of the innocent archetype of Jung's about how people can be very childlike and naive about things. So there's that aspect to it as well. So it's all part and parcel of that whole Jungian journey.
All right. And normally you don't take these out on the road, but do you play some of the music with John Hackett, or are you maybe planning this time to go out on the road and um,
You ask me this question every time we meet.
I know,
And
and
no, no, no,
usually
no, no, it's a very valid question, and
because I
it's
hope
so
you do. I really hope
yeah,
you,
yeah.
and I'm probably not the
I do,
only one. There's
I do,
fans of yours
I do
that
too.
are probably like, yeah, why doesn't he play some of this live? But go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I would too, very much. It's my sort of ultimate end game with this music is to do that. Um, but it's got to be the right band, the right people, and it's got to be at the right time. And it's difficult music, hopefully, it doesn't sound difficult when you listen to it. Hopefully, it sounds like it's a fairly natural unfolding of people, musicians enjoying themselves, and expressing themselves in a fairly carefree way. Hopefully, that's how it comes across. But actually, it's really quite difficult music.
Yeah. And it's not something that, the John
Um,
Hackett fan can just pick up overnight. I understand that.
it's difficult
Um,
music to convey. Musicians is very important too. So I am hoping to, and I still have it in mind. And next year, there's already been a couple of offers of people asking me to play at festivals and so forth,
oh, good.
which is great. And I am very much working towards hopefully putting something together to present some music with a band um, with any luck next year. That is my plan. Um,
Well, there you go.
yeah, and
Maybe,
the thing is,
maybe by
I don't know how
being
much.
persistent and asking every year.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I'm kidding.
The thing is, I don't know how much back catalogue music I'll present because the next album was already written, so it could well be that there may be a lot more of that music played next year.
Well, see, and he's been here so many times he already knows the next question, and that was
Oh right,
his
okay.
and you just answered it. It's already written. How much can
Yeah.
you tell us about it? And is it going to be October of
Oh,
20?
this is like the Rush secret. I can't say anything, Mark. I've got to keep quiet.
Oh, come on.
I'm pulling your leg. I'm
I
joking.
knew.
Yeah. Um, I hope to have it released similar time next year. There's another conceptual idea behind it, which is developing all the time. And when I say I've written the music, I mean I have written pretty much all the tracks in their basic state, but every other day I revisit them and I rewrite little bits, and I either think about the title and how that might fit with the concept, and then I might change another harmonic thing here and there. So there's still, in a sense, it's a work in progress, but in general, most of the album, the tracks are already there, and all the ideas are there, and it's just a question of getting back into the studio and getting recording again, which I'm really
And it
excited about doing. I really look forward
same
to it.
same band, everyone's coming back, or I know
Oh,
I already kind of know the answer, but I'm going to ask anyway. I'm going to stumble into it.
there will be all I
Did
can
you
say. All I
pull
can say,
did you pull back
yeah. All I
Annika
can say
for
is
this one? Maybe.
no, because I
Yeah.
think it'll be a bit difficult to get Annika anyway because she will be pretty much busy with Rush
Okay. Well, yeah.
for
But maybe she
2026 anyway.
laid down a few of them beforehand, but no.
Well, I mean, no, I can tell you now that Roberta will be playing on the next album.
Okay.
That is a given, and so is Jonathan. So the rhythm section is the same.
Okay.
Um,
And Olga's
but there
coming?
will be, but there will be old faces and new faces, and uh, and 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 Olga will definitely be part of the album too.
Yeah,
But
I have a feeling you
there'll be other things as well, other
okay.
people.
And I'm gonna ask you another one, which I know
Okay.
I'm going in directions I probably shouldn't. But uh, oh, just ask a question, Mark.
Go on, ask the question.
Heather Finley, is there a possibility?
I've not thought about Heather at the moment, but you never know. We're good friends, and she lives very close, so you don't know. I'll keep you guessing on that one.
All right, that would be wonderful. Yeah, it'd be wonderful for her
Yeah,
and
I mean
maybe
Heather's fantastic. She's a really really beautiful singer. Yeah.
some flutes and whistles. But I'm not going to go down that road. All right, I'm
Well,
going.
the thing is, Mark, if I do need a flute player, I think I know one,
Oh,
a good one.
yeah, yeah. No, I have a feeling, yeah.
Yeah.
But well, hey, thank you very much as always. He's not afraid to go out there and give you a little bit. He's not going to give you the whole thing, and that's okay. And that's what that's
Well,
what it's. Yeah,
actually,
we
Mark,
got to wait and
to
get
be
it.
honest, Mark, yeah, if
Um,
I'm honest, because it's not because I'm trying to be
Right, right.
coy. It's because I haven't actually formulated the band
Sure,
totally yet.
sure.
So there are definite knowns, but in the words of Donald Rumsfeld, there are knowns and there are some unknown knowns that are known or unknown.
What a
I'll leave,
choice.
I'll leave you with that conundrum.
What a choice. Donald Rumsfeld. Wonder how many people watching this knows who that is. But
Well, I'll
uh,
tell you what, Mark. In the crazy days we live in, I could bring back Donald Rumsfeld.
well, yeah, yeah.
I can understand him even more than some other people.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, hey, thank you very much. Is there anything else that maybe you do want to leak or say that we haven't covered or talked about?
Well, John Hackett Band will be going to Europe next year.
Excellent. That's good to
This is
hear.
good news. That
Very,
is good
very
news.
good to hear.
Yeah.
Um, Festivals or a full-blown tour?
Bit of a tour, but with Heather Finley.
Excellent.
So that's going to be good.
And will he let you play one or two solo songs, or there's too much work?
Mark, Mark, if
You
I ever
need
wanted
to,
to, if I ever wanted to do
right?
stuff and do it, John would not have a problem in doing it. It's fine. It's just my reticence in the way in which I want to present that music. I
Yeah,
want to present it in a certain way and with certain musicians.
right,
And
right.
and but if I wanted to, there's never any problem with doing stuff with John.
I I could just see Duncan like, yeah, let me get a chance on this here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's true.
Give me a chance on that. No, yeah,
It's true.
I'm teasing. But yeah, hey, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Every time we get together, it's
Oh,
always,
it's great. It's always a pleasure, Mark. It's great. I really
yeah,
enjoy our chats, and hopefully you find it, informative, and hopefully it helps you and your listeners, get into the music a little more than you may have done otherwise. Great. Thank you.
the mask of sanity. Are you wearing
Yes,
a mask? Are you not wearing a mask? Get in there, give it a listen, and
that's it. And don't forget to go to the website.
yeah, and I'm gonna put all that stuff up here
Thank you, Mark.
once we get this done. But this
Fabulous.
guy is not only very creative, very talented, very um, very everything. Steve Hackett said it so many years ago, and he's just he's a nice guy, and that's on top of all the other stuff. So yeah, you want to go out and buy this album. Give it a listen. I think you'll love it. And the guy's name is Nick Fletcher. In case we kind of zipped through all that, but
Mm.
no, definitely
Thanks, Mark.
Mask of Sanity, not Insanity.
That's the one.
Um, but please give it a listen. It's wonderful. And he
Great.
keeps changing, altering, and coming up with new ideas. And now we all can't wait to hear this new one. So yeah. And he helped it. No, I want to be careful with this, but he gave Annika a stage from which everyone had a chance to hear her, including Rush. And there may have been other bands that also were pursuing her. I don't know. He doesn't know, maybe. But she now has found hopefully a home, and uh, just remember she had a couple of great albums with Nick, and go back and listen to those if you have any worries or notions that, oh, that she's a woman, she can't do what Neil Peart did. No, she definitely can.
Well, I mean, those albums, Mark, the Quadrivium and A Longing for Home, seriously probably are the only two recorded works that she's made of progressive rock. You know, she
Yeah,
has recorded lots of stuff, but in the world of progressive music, they're probably the only two albums that she's actually performed on. And so they are fantastic. I mean, I would say this obviously myself, but I'm just talking about her performances and her ability to play and what she brought to those albums. She is one of the greatest drummers you could ever wish to have in your band. She's one of the greatest people to work with. She's a wonderful, kind, giving, gracious person and amazingly talented. Yeah. So yeah, check out the albums.
All right. Any anything else you want to add? Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead.
No, I don't think so, Mark. I think we've covered everything, and it's been great speaking to you. Thank you.
Okay. Give me a minute. I'm going to go ahead and hit the stop recording. And thank you again, Nick, for everything, as always.
Thank you, Mark.